In the music, sampling is the act of taking a portion or a sample of one sound recording and reusing it as an instrument or sound recording in a different song or piece. Before you use that portion or sample in the sampler, it should be cleaned. In this Kontakt video, I'll show you how to clean your dirty samples with the Wave Editor. And never miss a tutorial by subscribing to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/adsrtoots. So the first thing that you want to do is find your sampler. So I have a folder that I use where I save sounds that I hear, mostly from the internet, and which I don't have ideas for just yet. But what I do is I'll just save them in a folder and I'll listen to them at various points in time when I need to find some inspiration for a sampled song. So let's see if we can find something interesting. Turn on autoplay on this. So if in case you're interested in this little thing right here, is called Snapper. Yeah, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? All right, I like that one. So a lot of times when you're working with samples, you might have gotten it from a record that you recorded, or you might have gotten it from YouTube or the internet, or somebody emailed it to you. But if it comes in an MP3 format, Kontakt doesn't like that. So the first thing that you need to do is convert it, and you can convert it in any DAW or audio editor. Well, not any DAW, but most of the good ones let you convert MP3 to Wave. In this case, Snapper, it has a neat little feature that lets you convert a MP3 to Wave. So I'll do that, and okay, so we have a Wave file. So we'll come to Logic here and add an instance of Kontakt. All right, there's double click to add it into Kontakt. Go to the mapping editor and fix this up a little bit. A sample like this I only need on one key, but a quick tip is this sample has a lot of different moving parts in it, a lot of parts that are interesting to me. So instead of making multiple instruments for the same sample, what I can do is I can use different zones. So I'll get to that in a little bit. So the first thing that you want to do is identify the sections to focus on. So we'll open up the loop in the sample in the Wave Editor, and we'll enable snap to zero crossing because we're going to be doing some editing, and we want the edits to snap right at the zero line so that you don't get any artifacts, any snaps or pops. Okay, then you can either use your MIDI keyboard to play the sample, or you can use the play button here. You want the first thing I notice is that the sample is a little late, so it has this gap. So we'll fix that in a little bit. But let's identify the parts that we like in this sample. I like that little first. I like that. So that's definitely something we can use. That middle part might be able to be looped. Okay, so there's a couple different parts in there too. Definitely the last part where the drums can come in, and then this last part here has a couple of hits I think I'll use. So I think I see about 4 or 5 different parts. So what I will do is I will duplicate the zones. And for the purpose of not making this tutorial extremely long, I'll only focus on 2 of the parts here. So my zone is already selected. Duplicate zones. And if we were doing some more advanced stuff, I would care about the group, but for purposes of this tutorial, we don't need to worry about the groups. And for some odd reason, my zone did not get duplicated. If you ever have a situation where you think you might have zones that are on top of each other, what you can do is go to list view and it will show you, and in this case I do have a zone on top of each other. So what you can do is just slide one over and get out of list view. Alright, so now I have 2 zones. Alrighty then. Another helpful feature is to turn select zone on via MIDI. That way your zone is selected when you hit your MIDI keyboard. So let's open up the wave editor by double clicking on the zone. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to crop this sample and get rid of the parts that we do not care about. So I will go to the sample editor. Okay, so I think I want to loop this part, so I'm going to conservatively chop off this part and hit delete and chop off just to be safe. Chop off this, and the sample editor has a undo and redo, so if you ever do something wrong, hit the undo button, hit the redo button. And this editing is actually non-destructive. What Kontakt does is it actually makes a new copy of the file and it puts it in the same directory and just gives it it appends some numbers, some version numbers to the file. So your original sample is always untouched. So what you want to do when thinking about looping is you want to get close to the beginning, but you want to give a little gap because if you do go too far, then your loop will never be able to be perfect. So it's unfortunate. I wish you could kind of set your start points to match here in the zone editor, in the sample editor, so that you can set an exact start and chop off the beginning. But unfortunately, when you're in the sample editor, you cannot affect the start. But a little trick that somebody showed to me was if I come here to the outside of the sample editor, and I find the part that I want, I can move the start flag there, note the sample start, and go back to the sample editor and make my start the same, exactly the same. So that's a trick to, I mean, it's a little clunky, but if you want to get the exact start in the sample editor by chopping it off, that's the only way to do it. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a best guess estimate and try to get it as close, and then use a sample flag to get it fine-tuned. Go back out here and move this. So I see about right here. Chop that off. Chop that off. Okay. So I'm close as I need to be for this loop. And the last thing you want to do before getting out of the sample editor is to normalize your loop. This will make the loop, it'll find the loudest point in your sample, and it'll make the average volume as loud as that part is without clipping. Oops, I'm sorry. First you have to select something first. You actually have to select your sample. There you go. Now hit normalize. There you go. So just go back to the sample loop tab or sync slice tab, doesn't matter. Well, actually, we want to do a loop, so go back to the sample loop tab. Alright, so zoom in, find your start. So start is about right here. Okay, so we add a loop. We need to set the loop start to the sample start and find the end. So I see about right here. Off. A little early. Another thing that you can do is, and I recommend this anytime you're doing loops, is to add a half a second, between a quarter second and a half a second fade. The fade is in milliseconds, so 1000 milliseconds equals a second, so 500 is half a second. Alright, so let's move on to the next one. Go back to the mapping editor. Select our second zone. Open it up in the wave editor. Go to the sample editor. Okay. So I want to get the start of these drums, so I actually think right about there is good. So I'll just delete that. Oh, I guess I didn't delete it. Okay. Alright, the end is about right here. Delete that. Okay, let's chop off that last part and we should be good to go. Alright, so edit sample. Actually, just normalize this first. Make sure we select everything. Alright, exit the sample editor, go to the sample loop. Make sure our start is good. Alright, let's add a loop. Add a 250 millisecond fade. That sounds good. And one last thing that you can do is you can go back to the mapping editor and you can, since this is a drum part, you can duplicate this, duplicate the zone, so then we have this one. Go back to the mapping editor and turn the loop off by hitting the power button. Yes, 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 yes. And because I made a copy of the zone, it's telling me if I want to edit this zone, I have to resave it so that it doesn't affect the WAV file that's being used in the second zone. So that's all that was. Okay, so turn the loop off, and what we can do is instead of looping, we can do this. We can use a grid, and we can split this. Use auto, and adjust the slider till you get usable parts. Here's a couple that I want to try to get in there. I'll just add it manually. To add a slice marker, just click the plus button. I'm gonna get that one in there. Okay, and make sure you turn it off. Otherwise, if you click around, it'll either add, delete, or remove markers. Okay, and then all you need to do is go to the Sync Slice tab and click Drag MIDI to Host. And what will happen is a new group is created with the slices. And if you go to the mapping editor, you'll see that each one is on its own. And if I take my keyboard out, so each slice is on a different key. So now I can use that in my recordings. So cleaning your samples before you start sound design is critical, and making sure your sample doesn't contain any artifacts or is at its optimal level. It also helps when using time-based modes because Kontakt will be able to determine the sample length more accurately. And don't forget to check out our website at www.kontakttutorials.com for more Kontakt tutorials and sounds. ADSR Kontakt tutorials, supercharge your Kontakt skills. This is DJ Nice signing off until next time. Now go make some music.